We've all been there, trying to make decisions or solve problems, and suddenly our thoughts just don't seem to make sense. It's like our brain goes into overdrive and logic gets tossed out the window. Ever wonder why that happens? What if I told you that sometimes your mind isn't just being random, it's actually playing tricks on you, overriding your logical thinking without you even realizing it? Sounds crazy, right? Well, it's all because of some very clever mind hacks that we all fall for every single day. Today, I'm going to break down 7 counterintuitive mind hacks that can hijack your thinking and lead you to make choices that seem completely irrational, yet we do it all the time. Stick with me because by the end, you'll know how to stop these sneaky tricks in their tracks. Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful tricks our brains play on us: anchoring. This is one of those things that you might have experienced but never really understood. Imagine you're shopping for a new phone. You see one priced at $1,000 and think, wow, that's expensive. But then, right next to it, there's another phone that costs $500. All of a sudden, that $500 phone seems like a steal, right? Even though you weren't initially planning to spend that much, the $1,000 phone has anchored your mind into thinking $500 is a good deal. You just went from "that's too much" to "that's a bargain." Anchoring works because our brain gets fixated on that first number we see, and everything else is measured against it. The crazy part is we don't even realize we're doing it. Think about a time when you bought something and later realized it wasn't really worth the price. You didn't make that decision based on its actual value, you made it because of a number that stuck with you. And that's exactly how marketers, salespeople, and even negotiators use anchoring to their advantage. So, the next time you're faced with a decision, pay attention to the first piece of information you receive. It could be guiding you in the wrong direction without you even knowing it. Now, let's move on to another mind hack that's a bit more subtle but still incredibly effective: the bandwagon effect. It's that feeling where you start to think something is true or good just because everyone else believes it. You've probably noticed this in social media trends, right? One person shares something and suddenly everyone's sharing it. Even if you didn't care about it at first, now you do. It's a classic example of the bandwagon effect. Our brains are wired to want to fit in, and we tend to follow what others are doing or thinking without questioning it. It's like, if everyone else believes it, it must be right, right? But the truth is that's not always the case. Just because something is popular doesn't mean it's the best choice for you. A personal example of this happened to me when a new app started trending. Everyone I knew was talking about it, and I felt this pressure to download it, even though I didn't really understand why. It's almost like my brain was tricked into thinking it was something I needed just because everyone else was doing it. But after a few weeks, I realized it wasn't even that great. I had fallen for the bandwagon effect, all because I was subconsciously trying to fit in. That's the tricky part. When we start doing something just because it's popular or because everyone else is doing it, we stop thinking critically. So, the next time you catch yourself following the crowd, pause and ask yourself, am I making this decision because it's actually the best choice for me, or am I just hopping on the bandwagon? I bet you've also heard about confirmation bias. It's one of those sneaky little hacks that really messes with your decision making. Here's how it works. Once you've formed an opinion or belief, your brain starts searching for evidence to support it. You might be wondering, isn't that just normal? Well, yes and no. The problem comes when your brain starts ignoring anything that contradicts your belief, no matter how solid the evidence might be. Let's say you've decided that a certain diet is the best, and then you come across a study showing how effective it is. You're like, see? I knew it. But what if there are other studies showing it's not that great? Your brain just won't register them as easily because it's already invested in the idea that you're right. This happens all the time in relationships, work, and even when we talk about politics. We'll look for arguments or opinions that agree with us and dismiss anything that challenges what we think. It's like our brain has already made up its mind, and it doesn't want to be proven wrong. The thing is, confirmation bias can keep you stuck in unhealthy patterns or outdated beliefs. If you want to make better, more informed decisions, you've got to be aware of it. Challenge yourself to consider different viewpoints and test your beliefs against evidence that doesn't fit your narrative. One of the most powerful mind hacks that we all fall for is loss aversion. We're wired to fear losing something more than we value gaining something of equal worth. This is why, when we buy something, the thought of losing it feels much worse than the joy we get from actually owning it. Think about a time when you hesitated to sell an old item you no longer use. Even though it was just collecting dust, you didn't want to part with it because you were afraid of losing it. That feeling of loss hurts more than the potential gain, so we hold on tighter to things we don't need. Loss aversion is often used by marketers and salespeople to convince you to take action. Think about those limited time offers, or last chance to buy messages you see everywhere. They're designed to make you feel like you're going to lose out if you don't act fast. Your brain reacts to that fear of loss, pushing you to make impulsive decisions. Now, let's dive into another mind hack that you've probably experienced but may not have thought much about: framing. Have you ever been in a situation where someone presents the same information to you, but it feels completely different depending on how it's worded? This is a perfect example of how framing works. For example, let's say you're looking at two job offers. One company says, "You'll earn $60,000 per year with opportunities for growth." The other says, "You'll earn $70,000 per year, but your growth opportunities are limited." Both salaries are close, but the way they're framed makes one job seem much more appealing than the other. The power of framing is that it can make you feel a certain way about a decision without you even realizing it. If someone tells you a car costs just $300 a month, instead of saying it costs $3,600 per year, you're more likely to think it's affordable. That's framing at work. It can shape your perceptions and decisions, often without you even realizing the impact it's having. In relationships, advertisers, and even politicians, framing is everywhere. The way something is presented can change how we view it. So, the next time someone presents you with an offer, take a step back and ask, what's the real picture here, and how am I being influenced by the way this is being framed? Let's talk about a mind hack that really gets under our skin: social proof. It's the reason why we're more likely to follow the crowd, even when we're not sure why. Social proof happens when we look to others for cues about what's acceptable or normal. Think about it. Have you ever seen a long line outside of a restaurant and thought, it must be good if so many people are waiting? Or maybe you've watched a product go viral on social media, and even though you weren't interested at first, you felt this sudden urge to buy it. That's social proof in action. Our brains are constantly trying to take shortcuts, and one way we do that is by assuming that the choices other people make are the right ones. We figure that if everyone else is doing something, it must be worth doing. The issue is, social proof can lead us to make decisions that are based more on popularity than logic or our own preferences. For instance, if you've ever bought a product because it had thousands of 5-star reviews, you've fallen for social proof. But those reviews might not always be genuine. Brands can manipulate this by creating fake reviews or inflating numbers, and we're all too willing to believe it because everyone else seems to love it. So next time you're faced with a decision driven by popularity, ask yourself, is this really the best choice, or am I just following the crowd? The next mind hack I'm going to talk about is the availability heuristic. This is a shortcut our brain uses to judge the likelihood of something happening based on how easily we can recall examples of it. Ever notice how news stories about plane crashes make us feel like flying is dangerous, even though statistically, air travel is one of the safest ways to get around? That's the availability heuristic at work. Because the crash is so memorable, we overestimate the risk of it happening to us. Similarly, if you've ever bought something after seeing tons of ads for it, you're probably influenced by the availability heuristic. Your brain assumes that because it's in front of you so often, it must be important or popular. What's tricky about the availability heuristic is that it can make us overestimate risks or importance based on limited examples. Our brains are great at remembering dramatic or emotional events, but those examples aren't always the best basis for making decisions. The next time you're about to make a big choice, ask yourself, am I overestimating the risk or importance of this just because it's the most recent or dramatic thing I've seen? Lastly, let's talk about cognitive dissonance. This is the uncomfortable feeling we get when we hold two conflicting beliefs or when our actions contradict our beliefs. Ever bought something expensive and then tried to justify it later by saying, well, I deserve it, or, it's an investment? That's cognitive dissonance in action. Your brain wants to resolve that discomfort, so it makes up a reason to align your actions with your beliefs. It's a natural coping mechanism, but it can also lead us to make decisions that aren't in our best interest. Cognitive dissonance is a powerful mind hack because it can make us ignore or rationalize away evidence that contradicts our choices. This happens a lot in relationships too, when we know deep down that someone isn't treating us right, but we justify their behavior to avoid the discomfort of facing the truth. Being aware of cognitive dissonance can help you recognize when you're making excuses for something that's not serving you. When that feeling of discomfort hits, stop and ask yourself, am I ignoring the truth here to avoid facing something uncomfortable? Now that we've explored a few mind hacks, let's discuss one of the most powerful tactics that manipulates us every day, the anchoring effect. This is when the first piece of information we see or hear influences how we perceive everything that comes after it. Imagine you're shopping for a pair of shoes, and the first pair you see costs $500. You might think, wow, that's expensive. But then you see another pair for $200 and suddenly the $200 shoes seem like a bargain, even though they may still be pricey in reality. That's the anchoring effect in action. It works because the initial price becomes your anchor and everything else gets compared to it. It's the same reason why some retailers will display a regular price crossed out, and then show you a discounted price. The discounted price seems like a great deal, but the original price is the anchor that makes it seem like you're saving more than you actually are. The anchoring effect is incredibly powerful because it tricks your brain into thinking you're getting a better deal than you are. Next time you're faced with a price or offer, ask yourself, what's the true value here, and how is this first piece of information skewing my perception? Let's move on to another fascinating mind hack, the halo effect. This is when one positive trait of a person or thing influences our overall perception of them. For example, let's say you meet someone who's really good looking. You might assume they're also smart, funny, and successful, even if you don't know much about them. That's the halo effect. It's easy to fall for this because our brains like to take shortcuts and fill in the gaps, but it can cloud our judgment. In the workplace, the halo effect can be especially dangerous. If someone is charismatic or well-liked, we might overlook their flaws or mistakes because we've already formed a positive impression of them. This can lead to biased decision-making and can even cause us to trust people who are less competent or trustworthy than we think. The next time you find yourself forming an opinion about someone based on one good trait, take a step back and ask, am I making assumptions about this person, or am I seeing the full picture? One mind hack that most of us encounter daily but rarely notice is the placebo effect. This happens when we believe something will work because we expect it to. It's like taking a sugar pill and thinking it'll cure your headache just because you believe it will. The power of belief is so strong that it can physically affect your body. The placebo effect isn't just about medicine. It can impact our choices and perceptions in everyday life. Think about how some people believe in superstitions like carrying a lucky charm or performing a ritual before a big test. It's the belief in the power of the charm or ritual that gives them confidence, even if it doesn't actually influence the outcome. Similarly, in the workplace, People who believe they'll get promoted based on their performance may actually start performing better simply because they believe in their success. The placebo effect reminds us that our mindset and beliefs can have a real impact on our actions and outcomes. Finally, let's talk about scarcity, the fear of missing out. You've seen this tactic everywhere, from limited time offers to only 3 items left in stock. Scarcity plays on our fear of losing something valuable, so we act quickly without thinking about whether we actually need it. This is a mind hack that works because our brains evolved to prioritize scarce resources as more valuable. If something seems rare, we're more likely to want it, even if it's not something we actually need. The problem with scarcity is that it can push us into making decisions based on emotion rather than logic. Have you ever rushed into buying something just because you saw the limited time only sign? That's scarcity at work. The trick is to slow down and ask yourself, do I really need this, or am I just reacting to the pressure of scarcity? By questioning this automatic response, you can avoid making impulsive decisions that you might later regret.